Legendary Mechanic, Chapter 421, Super Gene Extractor and Temporary Character Summon Card. Boom! The explosion awakened the night. The Blue Shield Knights in the camp walked out of their tents and looked at the forest not far away with suspicion. Thick smoke was rising inside the forest. They turned around and were shocked to realize that Razor was missing. "The prisoners escaped!" someone shouted. The knights hastily picked up their shields and steel swords and hurried to the scene of the explosion. As they entered the forest, they saw Hanzao standing before a huge pit. Inside was a corpse that was as burnt as charcoal, unidentifiable. Rex hastily arrived at the scene and demanded, with a serious face, "What happened here?" "Your prisoner almost escaped, and I caught him." Hanzao shrugged and said, "As you can see, I actually played too much. Razor is dead?" The knights were shocked. Rex's expression changed, and he shook his head and said, "The king wants him alive. He should not have died, but sadly, he decided to die." As the commander, he concluded this matter with just a few words. He strictly punished the few guards on duty, then ordered the knights under his command to go back to sleep. The people saw this and did not bother too much about it. Since Racer had died, there was no need to escort him anymore, and they would not have to be nervous on the way back home anymore. Many people heaved a sigh of relief and felt content. Most people had the same thought as Rex and wanted Razor dead. Their hometown of Sunday nights was Sutherland territory, and Razor had almost killed their family. If not for the Higher World warriors, the outcome would have been unimaginable. Despite Razor's failure, they could not take it as if nothing had happened. A few old soldiers who had followed Rex a long time realized something and gave Rex a meaningful look. They knew their commander well. This escape was most likely planned and acted out for the sake of the king and those royals who wanted to capture Razor alive. Killing Razor was to prevent others with vicious intentions from benefiting from him and causing more harm. Rex had a very good reputation among the army and was loved. Furthermore, the soldiers did not have a very good impression of the royals. Without any discussion, they all took it as if they knew nothing. After everyone dispersed, Rex nodded at Hanzao and left. Hanzao did not return to the camp, but walked further away instead. In the dark night, he came to the back of a small hill. Razor had been thrown here, and Hurlus was guarding him with his arms crossed. In the end, Rex had given Razor up. Although he really wanted to kill Razor, he did not have much of a choice with Hanzao, so he could only believe Hanzao's words. "How is he?" Hanzao asked. "The wounds on his chest is bandaged, so he won't die." Hurlus replied, "Good. I'm going to King City with the knights. You need to stay in this wild with Razor. When I'm done, we will call a spaceship and leave together." Hurlus nodded. He sized up Razor and questioned, "Blackstar, are you actually recruiting this mage? He's not the good kind at all." "Do I look like I'm that sort of people?" Hanzao patted his back and said, "Don't forget, I promised to bring hundreds of thousands of supers to solve Sunni's problems. I'm not interested in him." "Alright then, I'll listen to you and stay to guard him. If he wants to run, I'll slash him." Hurlus trusted Hanzao a lot. He knew that his fate was bounded with Hanzao. In the beginning, he joined Blackstar, full of doubt, but after going through so much together, he strongly believed that Hanzao had the ability to live up to his promises when he recruited him. Hanzao had the ability to change the future of his race. "Since you're not recruiting him, what will you use him for?" Hurlus asked. Razor looked up at Hanzao. His aged face was filled with horror, no idea what awaited him next. "You'll see." Hanzao took out a small suction shaped device. In the middle, which were many tiny needles, he pressed it on Razor's arm where the veins were close to the surface. The needles penetrated into his veins, slowly suckling his blood, and gradually released a dim magic light. Razor suddenly felt as if he was losing his magic power in his body. Terrified, he looked at the device on his arm. This thing was sucking his magic? No. He struggled with all his might, but his strength was disappearing very quickly. Magic was disappearing continuously. Very soon, more wrinkles appeared on Razor's face like he'd become 10 years older. A sense of weakness filled his body, and he felt like he was back in his childhood, when he was just an ordinary person. "Where's my power? Give me back my power!" He had gained the power of an ascender for less than half a day, and before he could feel that power fully, he had already lost it. Razor almost fainted. Even when the 20-year plan failed, he had not been this desperate. Power was the foundation of his confidence, and Hanzao took that away from him. With his power lost, Razor's mind seemed to become an ordinary person too. No, not even as strong as an ordinary person. He was crying and begging. Hanzao shook his head. Some people used their power to do whatever they wanted and be evil, and when they lost it, they became cowards. The device in his hand was indeed the Super Gene Extractor test version he had gotten from Darkstar. Hurlus saw this, and a chill ran down his spine. "Quickly, put it away, I'm afraid." A few months ago, Hanzao had tested the effect of the extractor. The first test subject was Frenzied Sword. The effects on it on the players was absorbing 20 to 50 points of a random attribute and a certain amount of energy from them, which could be given to another player. The duration of it was 10 minutes to 2 hours. In his previous life, the Super Gene Extractor was controlled by Darkstar. The players could only get broken Super Gene Extractor after completing highly difficult rated missions. Its effect was similar to the one that he had, but weaker. The practicality of the extractor was very low in combat, as it had to be in direct contact with the body of the target to take effect. Most people had physical or magical armor, so it was very hard for it to work. Furthermore, the target had to be under control and not fidget around. The prerequisite to use it was very tough. The hidden function of the extractor would only take effect when the target was completely unguarded, such as sleeping, enslaved, paralyzed, or willing, which meant the target had to be under complete control. If the players were affected by it, unluckily, they would enter a 12-hour weakness period, where their attributes would decrease by 30 to 90%, depending on the extractor output. If it was used on an NPC, not only would that NPC become weak, it would also generate an ability potion. Drinking that potion would grant a certain ability from the target, which would be shown as temporary character summon card on the player's interface. The second tough subject that contributed to his test result to Hanzao was indeed Hurlus. Hurlus did remember the sense of terror and weakness when his power was taken away, and he was horrified of it. When Hanzao used on him, he had only used a low, small output, but even so, Hurlus had needed many days to recover for it. Things like this could take away super genes were a natural enemy of supers. How many supers did this organization that invented this device destroy in the process? Hanzao took out 3 empty tubes and poured the blood extracted by the device inside. You have received ability potion, times 3. He drank 1 tube straight away. The sweet and metallic taste filled his mouth, the warm blood flowed down his throat, and it was very spicy on the nose. Then a warmth that belonged to magic power rippled in his body. You have received character summon card, Razor, temporarily. Character summon card, Razor, temporarily. Origin water magic power. Temporary grants power beyond oneself. Plus 20% all attributes. Duration, 5 to 15 minutes. Usage, 1 out of 0. This character summon card will exist for 15 days. Buff, not a bad ability at all. Hanzao was quite satisfied. Razor had only lost his magic power temporarily, but the crying old guy did not know that. This meant that Hanzao could keep shearing him and make many ability potions. Although the temporary character summon card's ability would be different, he believed that the players would be willing to pay for this new product. In his previous life, Darkstar had used the Super Gene Extractor to carry out this plan. The different ones, Hanzao was not captured people as batteries out of nowhere. The temporary character summon card was just an add-on for him. He had no need for it. Only when he met someone that he would use on without conflicting with his morals would he do it. I recall that you begged me to bring you to the higher world. Now I promise you I will. Hanzao's smile was like a demon's in Razor's eyes. This old guy shivered in terror. Going to the higher world like this was the exact opposite of how he thought it would be. A strong sense of regret filled his heart and climbed into his eyes. Phew, you're a demon. Razor wanted to roar, but he could only speak these words softly. Hanzao was amused. You're calling me a demon? 2 days later, the Blue Shield Knights returned to King City. This city was sitting on a plain, and the Origin Water River split the city in half from the middle, separating into the east and west shore, at the same time dividing the classes. The east shore had royal mansions and palaces, beautiful and luxurious. The west shore had crowded civilian areas filled with buildings and all kinds of population pipes forming the complex streets. Only the people who had lived there for more than 10 years could remember the roads. The usual people would be lost their way after a few turns. It was noon now, and a bean-sized sun hanging in the sky. The lights were dim and gave the city a dark, yellow shade. The buildings and streets shouted at each other. It was like dusk under the sunlight. But this was the brightest time of the day in Planet Dawn. Rex brought everyone to East Shore and settled near the palace. The steward came to welcome them, and his attitudes were more polite and respectful than when he faced the king. He bowed so low that as if he wanted to plant his head in the ground. On behalf of the Vane Kingdom, I welcome you to Planet Dawn. His Highness has invited the higher world warriors to join the palace for dinner. We hope that you can give us the pleasure. By then, our senders will communicate with you through the Kingdom Tribune mages and make payment for the reward of this hire. The people had no objection. Hanzao's main goal for this trip was to ask around about the signs of mutation disaster, and it was the perfect opportunity to ask the king if the palace dinner was the type of party that allowed him to move around freely. He would then ask the king for intel.